Celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the age of Trump requires a kind of honesty that this country often avoids. It's not enough to quote a line about dreams or unity and move on. The contrast is too stark. The dissonance is too loud. King was not a mascot for good vibes. He was a direct threat to entrenched power, and nearly everything that Trump represents sits in open defiance of what King spent his final years warning us about. King's opposition to racism was not limited to personal prejudice or hateful language. He understood racism as a system, one that used law, economics, and violence to maintain hierarchy. He spoke plainly about white backlash, about the dangers of appealing to order over justice, about the myth that time alone would heal inequality. Trump's rise has accelerated that backlash. His presidency has normalized grievance as a rallying cry. It's reframed white resentment as patriotism and rewarded cruelty as a political strategy. Under Trump, racism doesn't need to hide behind coded language. It can be blunt, performative, and electorally successful. But King's critique went deeper than race alone. By the late 1960s, he was explicit that unchecked capitalism, as practiced in America, was incompatible with justice. He named the concentration of wealth, the exploitation of labor, and the moral emptiness of profit without responsibility. He called for economic equity. Trump's presidency has moved in the opposite direction, cutting taxes for the wealthy, deregulating industries that poison communities, and treating workers as disposable. Economic inequality hasn't been an unfortunate side effect, it's been a central policy position. Then there's militarism, the issue that isolated King most in his lifetime. When he spoke against the Vietnam War, he was condemned across the political spectrum. He warned that a nation addicted to war abroad would neglect the poor at home and brutalize its own moral compass. Trump didn't invent American militarism, but he has amplified its most dangerous impulses. Threats of force have become commonplace. International norms are sloughed off like mere suggestions. Under the Trump regime, violence is glorified, not questioned. Even domestically, Trump is openly threatening to deploy military power against protesters, blurring lines that King insisted must never be crossed. What makes this moment especially uncomfortable is how often King is invoked by people advancing the very things that he opposed. His words are stripped of context and used to shame protest, to flatten dissent, and to demand patience from those who are being harmed right now. The radical King, the one who challenged capitalism, condemned war, and demanded structural change, is replaced with a safe, silent version who asks nothing of us. Trump's presidency exposes just how shallow many MLK Day observances have become. If King were alive today, he would not be celebrated by the powerful. He would be surveilled, attacked, and dismissed as divisive. He was deeply unpopular when he died. His approval rose only after his critics were defanged and his demands were made symbolic. So the question is not whether we honor King in the age of Trump. The question is whether we're willing to tell the truth about what honoring him actually requires. It requires rejecting the comforts of nostalgia. It requires confronting systems and not just leaning into empty sentiments. It requires recognizing that racism, economic exploitation, and militarism don't recede on their own. MLK Day should not just inspire us. It should cause a bit of discomfort. It should force a reckoning with how far this country has moved from the vision that King articulated so clearly at the end of his life. In an era where Trump's policies have pushed inequality, fear, and force further into the mainstream, invoking King without grappling with that reality would be a failure to embrace his true legacy. If we're going to say his name, we should at least be brave enough to stand where he stood and honest enough to admit how far that many in our country have drifted from it.